Good morning, I'm Jim DeLapa, CEO of Kiran Analytics. Thanks for having me here today. One of the biggest challenges facing retail banks today in the light of customers migrating so many of their transactions to alternative channels is how to staff the branch network. The top 50 banks alone spend $30 billion a year today staffing their branch networks, even with all this channel migration taking place. And making this even more complicated is the fact that so many different areas of the organization play a role in the planning for how to staff the branches, from operations to finance to HR. And ultimately, this whole strategy has to be carried out by the branch managers. That's where the execution happens. The Kiran Workforce Optimization Solution brings together a single model for workforce optimization that takes into account the inputs and interest of all the key stakeholders in your retail bank. Let's take a look. The first and most important voice in your staffing plan needs to be the customer. So any workforce optimization solution has to start by taking a look at the trail of data that customers leave behind when they come into your retail branch. It's not enough to just say that customer traffic is down by 4%. We need to look customer segment by customer segment, who's coming into the branch, transaction type by transaction type. And using this information, we can apply predictive analytics to forecast where customers are going to use the branch and how customers are going to use the branch in the near future and the intermediate future. This is really important because simplistic models of forecasting no longer work. Things are changing much too rapidly. So at Kiran, this is one of our core areas of expertise, forecasting customer traffic and work content in the branch. Once we have an understanding of how customers are going to use the branch, the next thing we want to look at is our position planning. So our operations folks want to talk about how they're going to align their staff to serve the needs of those customers that are coming into the branch. So in the intro, we talked a little bit about the universal banker, but this can apply to any position in the branch. Rather than making broad stroke decisions about we're going to have one universal banker for every 2 personal bankers, or we're going to replace all tellers with universal bankers, we take that customer information that we forecast before and we make decisions about what we want each person or each role to do in the branch. Which types of transactions do we want the universal bankers to serve? Which types of customer segments do we want them to serve? All the way through all of the positions in your branch, we make those decisions. Now, if we know how many people are coming into the branch and the types of transactions they're coming in to process, and we know who we want to serve those roles, we can take those 2 pieces of information together and we can know branch by branch exactly how many people we need in each role throughout the branch network. That's the way to plan for your position planning. So, using those 2 together, we get an FTE forecast that's based on a target service level. So, for example, if we want to serve 85% of our platform customers in 5 minutes or less, we can get an FTE count. So, is that where it ends? Not even close, because guess who's coming along next? Our friends in the budget department. They have different ideas about how this branches ought to be staffed. So, for example, they may say, well, that's all well and good that that's your service level, but we have a responsibility to look out for the finance of the organization, and we'd like to look at bringing those FTE numbers down. Well, we're not going to let them do that in a vacuum anymore. So, for example, if our forecasted FTE to hit our service target is 386, and we want to apply a reduction to, say, take that down to 346, watch what's going to happen to our service level. Instead of about 5.5 minutes, we've taken that up to about 6.5 minutes by making that reduction. So you see what's happened here? We've created a feedback loop between finance and operations, and we've created that visibility so that now we can make decisions, because the budget impact from FTE reductions is one thing, but we have to consider the impact on the customer. We've put your organization in a position to be able to make informed decisions as to whether or not those trade-offs are in your best interest. So that's quite important. So with all of these things, they're very iterative. We can go through multiple scenarios and we can look at what we think is best for our bank. And ultimately, we select a plan. And once we have that plan, we're going to bring in another voice. We're going to bring in the voice of HR or recruiting. So we have the plan in place, and for every level of the hierarchy, based on these customer arrival forecasts and the position planning and the budget we've selected, we can see exactly how many people we need in every position throughout the hierarchy. So now HR has a heads up, and they can see that we're going to need fewer tellers and more universal bankers, and they can see that in the exact numbers. That's pretty exciting to be able to get that kind of visibility into how to migrate your branch network's staffing plan to where it needs to be. Now, ultimately, all of this information has to be executed at the branch. So we want to move from the strategic side to the tactical side. How do we get the information we need to the branch managers in a meaningful way that they can act on it? Well, we're going to push out just that information they need to their scheduling application. Now, probably everybody in here has a scheduler, but if you have a scheduler that doesn't align itself to the strategic plan, taking into account the customer arrival forecast, the budget, the position planning, and the budget, then you're just drawing pictures. We have to align this from top to bottom so that we don't have a disconnect between the strategic plan and what actually happens in the branches. So we have our forecast that we can schedule to for every single position. Every single position, the universal banker, the tellers, all the way throughout your branch to align with that budget and that strategic plan. And we can push out that position planning or that roster reconciliation so that every branch manager can see that according to the strategic plan, this is how many people you need and this is what you currently have. So there you have it. The Kiran solution provides you an alignment of the workforce optimization challenges that bring into account, oh, there's the sharks, every level of your bank from strategic planning down to the branch manager. Thank you very much. Come and see us in